What happens when you finally start becoming the person you worked so hard to become, but now you have to learn how to enjoy the life you built? Hello, I'm Luisa, host of Desktime Stories, and today I'm so happy to welcome back Natalie Mendez. Natalie was my guest in episode 4, The Grass is Green Wherever I Go, which became one of our most watched and most downloaded conversations. People connected with Natalie's story because it was honest, powerful, and full of resilience. From sleeping in her car, to starting on the teller line, to becoming a director of consumer lending, Natalie has built a career and life with grit, courage, and self-belief. But today, we're talking about the next part of the journey. Once you start growing, succeeding, and becoming the person you worked so hard to become, how do you also protect your peace, your health, your family, and your joy? We'll talk about ambition, boundaries, motherhood, leadership, and how to keep building a meaningful life without losing yourself along the way. Natalie, welcome back to Desktime Stories. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Luisa. Thanks so much for having me again.
Yeah, what do you think about that your episode was so
Oh,
successful?
was it? See, I was going to ask you about it. A lot of people reached out to me on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify. Some people have Apple Music, but everyone was like, send me the link, send me the link. And some of my girlfriends are just so sweet with their stories. I started a new job, as you know, so my director listened to it. She goes, that explains a lot about you. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared. So it's really impactful.
Well, I am so thankful to you for being so vulnerable and so open to sharing because we're seeing in real life how it actually is impacting others. And so
Yes.
as we were talking and getting ready for this episode, it was evident what happens when you become successful and how to set those boundaries. So before we go into all of that, what does success mean to you today? I'm curious if that has changed as you have moved up in your career.
Yeah, Louisa, it has. And I think most recently it's changed the most because I was like, oh, I want to get to where I am today. And throughout my whole life, living in my car, working in 3 jobs, going down to 1 job, right? Success looks different as I continue to move through life. And today, what success looks like for me is flexibility to be a mom. And I grew up with a mother that worked all the time. She worked 60, 80 hours a week. She was in the tax business, helping undocumented immigrants file their tax returns. And she made it into a very successful business. Me and all my siblings ended up working with her at some point, and we got that work ethic from her. And I think now that I have grown older and I've had tools and resources provided to me, there's nothing more important than providing for my almost 8-year-old son and spending time with him and making sure that I'm setting aside that time before he starts to ask for it. Because it hurts my heart when he's like, Mama, do you have to go to work today? Because he's like, Mom, I know you're a big boss. So can't you just tell them you're busy? Yeah. I'm like, yes. And, so hopefully we can talk today a little bit about how I've learned to balance that and what I can encourage others to do sooner than I did.
Well, frankly, I kind of want to hear it right now. I'm like, let's not wait. Tell us. Tell us about balancing, what people should do, please.
Yeah. So a lot of people call it work-life balance. I like to call it work-life flow. And what that means to me is there will be some weeks where I do work 50 to 60 hours a week. It's inevitable. There's projects, things are happening, things break, and you need support. The organization needs support, or school, I need to finish a project. So I will work multiple hours in a week sometimes. But then, for example, a few weeks I'll work my 40, right? If there's balance and everything's good. Or sometimes I'll cut them a little short and work 30 to 35. It all just kind of ebbs and flows. Or I'll work during the week a little bit less, and then weekends I'll pick it up a little bit more. I balance based off of my personal schedule, and I feel like I didn't do that before. And what I mean by that is I have 2 calendars. I have a Google calendar that's right at the front of my phone, and my work calendar is also right at the front of my work phone. And I always compare the 2. I'm always carrying the 2, unfortunately. And I know when to I'm going to leave the work phone at home. But when I'm looking at both of these calendars, I'm determining and what can I fit in and what's most important. And my son's activities go on both first. and they're non-negotiable. I don't move them. I add a little extra time in them sometimes. I'll add travel time on my calendars. You know what I mean? So that I make sure that I show up, because that one time you don't show up, you won't do it again. And those are things that kids remember. And when my mother wasn't always at my soccer games or my choir concerts or my field trips like my dad was, he would take work off and go. And I still remember that today as a 34-year-old, how meaningful and how special that was for me. And so I want to make sure that I do that and more for Alvaro as he continues to grow in this life where we're taught to just work, work, and work, and money, money, money. And yes, money does provide a really good quality of life. And I think as I continue to grow in my career, I'm learning how to live in the moment that I've worked so hard for since I was 18.
You speak words of wisdom, because I think that it is so hard to pause and
Oh,
enjoy. How do you remind yourself to do that? Because it has to be very intentional.
yes. And I think as we go through life, we meet certain people that'll help us do those things. People can say all the time, you need to slow down. You need to balance life. You need to XYZ. Okay, cool. I think also as women and women of color, we have to work a little bit harder, maybe prove it again mentality for a lot of folks. And we don't grow up with our parents in finance or our parents in professional settings. So we're sometimes, most of the time, the first to kind of go and do it. So our expectations are higher for ourselves than others. So I've had that mentality since I was 14 when I started working with my mom. Work, work, work. School was school. It's very important for me and Alvaro, but school was school back then, right? And I just went right into the working field. I wanted to go to college, but again, didn't have that opportunity. And now that I have everything set up, I want to make sure that I pause. But I met somebody last year that I started to see, and he's very much do whatever and doesn't have a calendar. So at first that was really hard for me. And I told him, I was like, I need you to put important things in your calendar so that you don't miss it. I don't like to remind people. And I was trying to tell him to be me. And so that was kind of bad at first, right? But
A little bit.
he personally came into my life at a good time because I feel the most financially stable I ever have. And he's like, let's just go and do things. So literally, Luisa, the last 2 weekends, we went to Chicago for the whole weekend. And then we went to the Dells for Mother's Day. And I don't think I would have done those things if I didn't have someone say, hey, let's go have fun. Why do we both make money? Why do you make such comfortable money and you're not utilizing it with yourself and your son and others that you love? And so you have to have some people in your life kind of remind you or force you, which is unfortunate. But for those that maybe don't have someone in their life, I would look to friends and family and just see what are they doing in their free time? What hobbies do they have? And kind of go from there or join them, right?
Yeah.
It's different for everyone.
You know what I really appreciate that you're saying is that you're owning who you are. You've learned to not impose yourself on others.
Trying.
Right? I am laughing because I'm thinking of my own life when I like things to be orderly, and
Right.
in my personal life when others don't do that. I get all crazy until
Yeah,
I read some author, I can't remember who, it was like, well, if things are not in order, that's not the other person's problem. That is your problem. So
right.
either
Right.
you're okay with that or you go and organize it for them. So
Yes. Yes.
it,
I think
it,
people can pick up qualities of others, especially if they spend time together.
yeah.
He added a very important date on his calendar, and I thought it was the cutest thing ever. I mean, he doesn't do it all the time, so that's okay. And I'm trying to learn to, this weekend, I don't have any plans, and he encouraged that. He's like, do your
Yes.
podcast, relax, sleep in. Let's go with
Yeah.
what the day flows, and it's really good for me. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also nice that you own who you are and you are also open to the positive influence that others can have on us, and everybody benefits and all those things. But I wanted to dig a little deeper as to your work-life flow. I had
Oh
never
yes.
heard that. So once
Oh,
again, Natalie with a shocking new phrase. Last time is the grass is green wherever I go, which we love. And
work
now
life.
it's my flow. So first of all, did you come up with that? Did you hear it? How did you
I
come up with
heard
that?
it. I heard it.
No.
I don't remember if it was a podcast, or reels or TikToks. I don't know. But it's really good. When the person was talking on this social media platform I was listening to, I was like, you know what? That I could do that. I don't know, work-life balance every single week would be hard for me because
Mhm.
I want to get things done that need to get done. And I also learned as time goes on, and especially in this role, if it's not life or death, could it wait, right? Could we just pause for a second? Could we release our nerves and just kind of flow and put it for next week? And so I try to practice that. And this week, I'm trying to also do that with my direct reports. So one of the things is if we don't lead by example, or we don't kind of encourage or enforce individuals to do the same thing we do in the most respectful way, right? How are we going to make the change that we want to see specifically in the system or corporate America? And I think we're just so accustomed to, oh, I'm out of the office today, but I'm checking email. Are you really out of the office? And I'm sure you can relate to that, Louisa, right? And when you get these when you get these big roles and these big responsibilities, we want to show up and we want to do a good job and we want to overexceed. We can do that and we can pause for a second. And so this week, my direct report was working so hard and I could see she was working so hard. And I said to her, I'm like, I was up with her on Friday in person and I said, we're leaving at 3:30 today. She goes, we? I said, we. And she's like, okay. I was like, you're walking out with me. And she's like, I don't know. I've got so many things to do. I was like, what is that? How can I help you? Can we wait till Monday? Right?
Mhm.
So she left with me and texted me later that night, just the sweetest text saying, thank you so much for recognizing my work ethic and the work that I do. And I texted her back. I said, there's going to be weeks where we put in a lot and there's going to be weeks where we can put in a little. Let's enjoy and embrace those breaks together and just do a good job. So I'm learning to do that. That's probably the second time I've done that with her since I started because she is such a hard worker and I wouldn't be able to do and learn this job without her. And so I want her to understand the value that she brings and the balance that she also deserves.
Well, amen for that, Natalie, because I think that it's wonderful that you provide that to her. And what's interesting is that it could sound as if you're being oh so generous and so kind to her in this case, but truly it comes back because now you
Yes.
have a person who is going to be loyal and who knows that you have their back. And so they're going to continue to work collaboratively and
Yep.
happy. And when people are in a good mental space, they're going to do better work. And so you benefit, she benefits, the organization benefits, whoever you're
Yes.
serving benefits. It's just such a positive cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question for you would be, let's say that I am different scenarios, but the one that I can think of is okay, maybe I want work life flow, but what if I don't have the environment or the structure that allows for it? What thoughts do
Yeah.
you have?
My first initial thought was go find somewhere that has, well,
Eh,
but sometimes that doesn't happen for everybody. And that's a privilege, in my opinion. And so it's hard to do that. And so I start to think that we have to speak up. I was at this conference a few weeks ago. It was a Women's Wisconsin Banker Association conference. And the whole theme of the conference was break the rules. And I know I was like, oh, they're telling me to break the rule. And my boss was there. So hopefully it's all good. But as women for so long, we follow the rules, right? And maybe
mhm.
a little too black and white. And now I feel like as we are gaining more positions of power, we should break the rules and not go with this is how it's always done and this is how it works. What has worked for us and how can we implement it in a professional and personal way into our workplace? And so you have to set the mold, and I don't want to break that. As a director, people are watching me, people are looking up to me based off of a title, but I still want to be able to bring who I am, my full authentic self to work, but still get the job done. And I think that's been my hardest thing to balance since day one. Being Latina, learning the language, trying to embrace my culture, but also come to work and show up passionately, which can seem aggressively, right? And show up authentically, which could be a little too cultured. I've been told multiple things, like I talked about in the last podcast, my advocacy is too strong. It's not, but it took me so long to realize that. And so I want to make sure that I'm embracing other women and encouraging them to be themselves and also showing up and taking the time for them. And it's difficult.
Okay. So I hear you. So maybe you ask for it, but if it's not happening, frankly, find a place that allows for it. When did you realize you wanted to enjoy the life you were building?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think after my divorce, I think things in life have to happen to you for you to kind of sit and realize, wow, I haven't been doing things wrong, but I haven't been doing things by me. And what I mean by that is I've always been thinking of others. I've always thought about my ex-spouse and my son, as I always will. But if I don't take care of me, I can't authentically show up for others. And so I don't mean to talk about my divorce, but this is going somewhere. So I knew, unfortunately, I needed a divorce when I wasn't showing up the way I wanted to as a mother. And that's hurtful, right? Because you're so emotionally affected in one way that it's impacting you in another stage in your life. And I was like, I'm not being the mom that I want to be or that I've always dreamed of being because I'm in a stage in life that doesn't support me and who I am. And so I was like, I got to go because I've got one life, I've got one baby, you know? And so I was like, we got divorced and we co-parent very well today. Alvaro is the center of both of our lives, thankfully. And so life is good there. Alvaro's doing so good. And I think that's when I realized life is so short. Partner, no partner, cats, dogs, whatever, work, staying home with the kids, anything. You have to determine what's most important to you and sit and give yourself time to self-reflect. And that could be with a friend, a partner, or talking to ChatGPT. Do you ever do that?
Yes.
I go back and forth in scenarios sometimes. And kind of figure a therapist. I'm very big into therapy. I love therapy and I recommend it for all folks, especially in the Latin community. I think it's super important to break cycles moving forward. So figuring out what's important to you and starting a list. How do you want to live your life and how do you want to end it? And then go from there.
Mm. Wow. I think I have some homework to do after this show. I'm like, oh, I need to make some lists. Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, pausing, prioritizing, and then making the adjustments necessary sounds like the right formula. So let me ask you about boundaries. What boundaries protect your energy, family, identity?
Yeah, boundaries are hard, especially with family and sometimes professional life. My last career, I shared a little too much personally, my personal opinion. I shared a little bit too much about my divorce. I shared a little bit about what was going on in my life because we want to connect with people. We want to connect with our boss, those around us, our team. And you can do that while still setting boundaries. So you can share about your weekend. Like, everyone's going to ask about your weekend. How's your weekend? How's it going? Or I see your work is struggling. Tell me what's going on. How can I support you? And you can share as much as you'd like to, right? Or as little as you'd like. But for me as a manager, if you share more, I can support you more, but I also respect if you don't want to. And so one of the things that I do with my direct reports, and I recommend anybody to do that, is kind of start slow. See how much they want to share, show up and be your authentic self, but also like give them space to trust in. I'm still working with my direct report to build trust, to understand how we function. And just the other day, she's like, hey, can I say something to you? And I was like, yeah. She's like, do you get annoyed when I talk sometimes? Because you're like, I got you. Like, she's like, you're really quick. And I was like, oh, okay. That's a habit I have if I've already heard us talk about it in the past. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, I got you. It's just like reassurance of, and she's like, well, I'd rather have you tell me that we've already talked about it. I was like, okay, good. So building that comfort and trust with your direct report or your team or your family or, others to kind of bring things forward that you're like, I don't know how they're going to take this, but this is how I feel. And her perception is her reality or anybody else's, right? And so I want to take a moment, self-reflect. How could I have changed how I showed up for you? But how can I also maybe share a little bit too so that she continues to build that trust with me, but not too much? Because I've gotten burned in the past with sharing a little too much, right? And I think we've all done that. Or some people do utilize it against you, unfortunately, or kind of manipulate you in the situation. Like, oh, you shared this with me, and I think we should do this. Or like, I think we should go on this plan, what do they call it? PIPs? Performance improvement plans.
Performance improvement plan.
Yeah. Especially when I was going through my divorce. that wasn't used against me, but my boss goes, hey, she pulls me in an office and something's happening. What's happening? Because she knows me and we had that trust. And I didn't want to share with anybody. She's like, you're working more hours. I'm like, well, this is my safe space because I'm going through a divorce, you know? So just learning what you should and shouldn't share and who you can and cannot trust, because it's hard out there. And then that'll help you create boundaries. I know that was a lot kind of going all over the place sharing, but it's hard to create boundaries.
Well, I feel that something that people, myself included, where I have struggled is even realizing that I have not set a boundary. So you're giving us good ideas as to how to start to set a boundary, right? Little by little, building that trust, don't overshare. But what happens? How does one realize that, oh, snap, I did not set any boundaries and now here we are? Are there any signs that show up? How does one know? And then how do you backtrack it?
Right? Good question. I think it just depends on people naturally, I think, like to gossip and share. I think it's just, maybe it's a Latina thing, so I think that, but I think we just naturally want to gossip, share, especially to the people we love or we live with. And so what I've learned is sometimes when I felt like I've overshared, I had a friend one time that shared that I was dating and seeing someone new when we were working together at my old place. And I said to her, I was like, I don't want you to share. You're my really good friend, and I don't want you to share, even though it's very surface level. It may be public knowledge about my dating life to other people I don't know and that we work with. And so also speaking up when you feel like your boundaries are crossed, but in a very respectful, polite, kind way. I don't know what your intention was, but this is the long-term impact that could happen to me. And I just want to make sure that I'm protected and that my business stays between me and you, whatever I share personally or professionally. So kind of reminding people, if you feel like your boundaries have been pushed, hey, could we keep that between us, or anything that you and I talk about? Could we just keep that between us? I think also we have habits of saying, hey, please don't say anything to anyone else. But I did it a lot too when I was going to a new job. I was like, hey, I'm going to share with you, but please don't share it publicly. I'm not sharing this for public knowledge. So I've learned to do that myself. I'm trusting you with this information. Please don't share with anybody else until I decide to make it public because it's my story. And so I don't think that hurts to tell people that. And I haven't had anybody get offended by it. So that has helped me create boundaries and to see who I could trust.
I was wondering, what has been the worst thing that has happened because you didn't set a boundary in work or life?
Oh, I got one. Like,
Ooh.
you used to. So I
Here we
used to be really good friends with she at the time was an assistant manager. This was an old job. And I was a baker, let's say. And we were really good friends outside of work, really good friends. And when I say really good friends, it's when I introduce you to my son, I feel like we are really good friends. And so she met my son. He'd come to dinner with us sometimes. And I just was inspired by her and her work ethic and how she showed up for people. And so we became friends outside of work. And we were at dinner one time. And I had shared with her, we knew a mutual person. And I shared with her what this person had shared with me to get her thoughts and opinion because I thought it was funny. And I crossed a boundary there with the friend that I was sharing about, right? And her taking that information, she went to human resources about it because she thought it was a threat to a specific individual we worked with when I thought it was funny. It's very interesting. I know I can't give you too much context.
No, don't.
I get a call one day. She texts me saying, hey, Natalie, HR is going to reach out to you about our dinner the other night. Off work hours. It was at Laredo's. Love Laredo's. And I was like, oh. She's like, I'm really sorry. So I get a call from HR. And they're like, hey, did you get this message from this person about another person? And I was like, what if I did? And they're like, oh, well, it's technically a threat. And we're wondering if we could get a copy of the conversation. I said, the conversation is on my personal Facebook. So I just want to understand, what does that do and what could that implement? Because the other friend I was talking about was a mother of 2 children. And I knew that if I shared this information, she would potentially lose her job. When the conversation happened outside of work, not on work computer time. And the dinner that I had with the other friend was outside of work at a dinner time. And she crossed a boundary with me, but I also crossed a boundary with my other friend. So it was really, really tough. I was crying after that phone call with HR because I was like, do I share this? Do I not? And how do I protect myself moving forward from this friend I thought I could trust? Now, if this friend would have came to me and said, Natalie, I need to go to HR and I can give you the opportunity to do it first, I think it would look a little different today. But I think her going to HR first and then me getting kind of shocked about it was what hurt the most. And then I also hurt another friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to make it right with that friend. And now that friend did lose her job, but she is in a much better position that she's dreamed of and is thriving and doing well. But that's besides the point. What if it was the opposite, right?
Right.
She told me it was a blessing in disguise, but then I was kind of grieving that friendship I thought I had and I trusted. And her and I still talk from time to time today, but it is not the same. And I think that's what hurts. And so that is what, since then, I've encouraged boundaries moving forward. I do not share what I feel like I can with others that I don't trust. And it takes me a lot longer time to get there.
Well, here's a $5 million question. I struggle with this, and I'm very black and white sometimes. I take an extreme or the other. Either I'm like best friends with somebody from work, or I'm not friends with anybody. And so my question is, would you recommend that people maybe don't mix work and life friend, right? At least at the time that you're working together?
Good question. Now, that is hard. That is the $5 million, maybe $1 billion question, because I have 4 friends from when I worked at my first bank that we are best friends today. 15 years. They are my best friends. We became best friends after we worked together. It didn't happen in the moment, but I think naturally just over time. But today, especially as we continue to grow, I would not recommend it. When I started at this new place, from the things that have happened to me in the past, maybe we'll talk about someday, I set such hard boundaries today because 2 things. Respectfully, in the most kind way, I don't need no new friend. And and I don't want to cross that boundary or for anyone to feel like that boundary is being crossed or inappropriate at any point in my career anymore. I can't afford it. It's not worth it. And so I don't add anybody on. I'm not going to add anybody on social media from my new job. I'm not going to let's go out for drinks. I will participate in community events and I will anything for the community, anything for the organization. But if it's a one-off, let's go to dinner, come to a celebratory thing. I have set boundaries to where, okay, you got promoted, great. You guys are going to go out, go bowling, whatever. I'll take you to lunch the next day at the company, or I will get you a gift outside of that, or I'll write you a card. Creating boundaries has also provided ways for me to celebrate people differently and not necessarily in a group setting, which I have found is more meaningful and safe.
Cool. I kind of want to go down that route to how to celebrate people, but maybe another time. I was just going to say that I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that, because as I have been talking to different people about this question, it's not like I'm targeting this question, but somehow it comes up. I think that has been a theme, that people have been burned for being too close to a work person, and then a boundary is crossed, and then there's consequences. Like, not once. Right now, I work with a wonderful, wonderful person that I want to be friends with them so bad because there's so many coming into this, and I move far away from my family and from my friends, and I have nobody here. But I'm like, I can't. And so when I told them, because I was like, I wish we could hang out outside of work, but we're work friends. Like, maybe if one day we don't work together. And they said the same thing to me. They're like, I too do not want to be friends because I have been burned in the past. So it's like a theme. So hopefully, if people are earlier in their career listening to this, hopefully that's a takeaway. What did you say?
Hopefully. Yeah, it will save you from a lot of maybe HR calls and potentially jobs shifts, you know?
Yeah. HR is a whole other topic. I'm writing down these future topics because hopefully you're willing to come back and talk about all these other things. But I do want to start bringing us home and talk about one thing that I personally don't have children. And I am friends with, like, most people have children, you know, men or women. And so I struggle understanding how one is able to be there for their children, their child, or significant others that are really close that need them while having a 9 to 5.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good
I
question,
mean,
Lisa.
you need your
Yeah,
paycheck. I know you were saying at the beginning, you were saying like, well, you put your personal things first. Yes, and I'm sure
yeah.
to your point, like when Alvaro says like, might want to just stay home. Well, you cannot always stay home. I'm sure that would
No.
be his preference.
Oh, all the
But
time. Yeah. He loves school. And so that encouraging him to love school has helped and
mm,
expressing to him the importance of school, but also kind of breaking the rules and taking him out once in a while. Like his dad last week was like, can he not go to school Friday and we go to the zoo with his partner and her family and all that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. If your child is doing good in school and he understands the importance of it, skip school once in a while. What's it going to do, right? So that's one of my advices. And then the other one is having people. So some people don't have people in their circle. They call it a community or a tribe or something like that. Like you need to have a community of people that love and care for your child. Some people don't have
mhm,
that. So I don't like to talk about that or give that out because I feel like that's such a privilege. And so my other thought is, yes, as mothers, we have to work and we have to work hard. And sometimes we put the majority of the burden on us. That could be also the household stuff when you come home, the after hours that you have to log in when they're going to sleep. I've done that. Or setting that firm boundary right out the gate. So when I started my new job, one of the things that I said was my son is first and he will always be first. I know how to balance between work and personal and being a mama. I need you to trust me with that because there's going to be some weeks where he's going to need me a little bit more or he's going to need me
mhm,
a little bit less. And having his dad and I co-parenting so well, it's very simple for me to say,
mhm.
hey, can you take him or can you pick him up? And that's something we can talk about another day too. I'd like to talk about is how did I set boundaries with my ex-husband on showing up more so that I could take on more professionally as we went through our divorce. That was one of the hardest boundaries I had to set, saying, no, you can do this. No, you set the appointment. So depending on people who have either helped you create this child or take care of this child and saying, pushing it back on them a little bit more too. Yes, I want to show up and I want to do everything for my son and I always have, but it's my responsibility too to take care of me and set expectations with the father of my child for him to show up just as much as I do. Because what if, unfortunately, something happens to me one day? I don't want him to be lost. They're both going to feel lost in some sense, right? And so I want to make sure that he knows how to take care of him and what his needs are. And that's a good responsibility as his mother to make sure that that's in place too. Um, so depending more on the father of my child has helped me and setting that boundary at work right away, right out the gate, blocking my calendar with Alvaro's things, letting them know, like, I don't have to tell my current boss everywhere I'm going and what I'm doing. It's always on my calendar and she knows that. And so also her being able to give me that flexibility and that peace of mind, knowing that I can show up for my child at any time and flex my time. I have the privilege with my role to kind of flex my time wherever I need. But showing her I'm capable of doing that on my own and not have to be managed about it. So I believe all of that.
Well, Natalie, thank you very much for inspiring us to like stand our ground and speak up, whether it is our at work, because you were saying like, well, you have the privilege of because of the position that you have. Frankly, we all should feel like we
Yeah,
can.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, it perhaps some jobs are more structured or whatever, and we still all have personal lives. And
Yes,
so, to your earlier point about if you're in a place where when life happens and you ask for something and you're not getting it, that's probably not the best place to be. Now we give people chances and we ask and we give feedback and oh,
yes.
last time when you said this, this happened, and so this is the consequence that it had. Can we change that? And so hopefully they will, but sometimes if they don't, if there's a pattern, and then the other thing that you said, I mean, thank goodness you have a co-parenting situation where there
Yes,
can be balance, but it does require you speaking up. And what I'm
yes,
also hearing is when you're setting a boundary, it's not about me, and protecting me. You are also helping others. I love how you mentioned it, like by you doing asking the father of your child to contribute more, it's also for their benefit. It's not just
yes,
to make your life more convenient.
yes. And I think that also flows. personal life flows. Because when we first got divorced, I had Alvaro a lot. And I think it was because of his work schedule. And now that he kind of has a more flexible work schedule, he kind of has him a little bit more than I do. And I think it'll ebb and flow as life goes on, who he'll have more and less time with. Of course, we also want to listen to Alvaro. What do you need and what do you want? I remember there's one time he came home, he's like, I want to go back with Dada. And it broke my heart. But like, I think they were just doing something really fun the past weekend, which is fine. But like also listening to him, like, what does he need? And then what do I need? You know? Mm-hmm.
Encouraging that open communication.
Yes.
Well, I think this is a really great place to start wrapping it up. And I just want to say, I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is allow life to flow, find that work-life flow, and skip school more often.
Hey, I don't think we did it. And so I want Alvaro to do it. If he's doing good in school and he understands the importance and he know, like, let's skip school, let's skip work. Life is short.
I mean, it really is something that it's terrifying to me. Like I remember I got COVID twice and I worked through it. When COVID was bad, like when it was like when you couldn't taste anything, when it was like, I'm like I have to work. I'm like, what is that? It's something
Stop
how
it.
we were brought up, and how wonderful to have work ethic. Yes. And also, if you're like not feeling half your body, you probably shouldn't be working.
Knock it off.
Natalie, I have one last question for you, and you're the first one that I'm starting this with. I want it to be the signature closer for the podcast going forward. So you better do good. Just kidding.
Oh, good.
No pressure. So
Right?
if you were to leave a note on somebody's desk with a positive message, what would it say?
Oh, if I had to do just a generic positive message, I would try to do something like you're worth it or you're meant to be here. And I do like generic messages. I think they're beautiful, but I find it more meaningful if it's personalized. So if you could personalize that message in some way because you know that person, like if I had to leave a note on maybe one of my teammates' desk, it would be like, you worked so hard this week. I see you. I appreciate you. Let's take breaks where we can, when we can, and get right back to it next week. Something a little bit more personalized, but generic. I think people don't hear enough that you're worth it. You're meant to be here and we need you.
Thank you. I think that, go ahead.
Sometimes just hearing that is kind of like, yeah. Affirmations. I don't know if you do them, but they're great. Talking to yourself. Appropriate or inappropriate?
Well, if it's inappropriate, we'll edit it out.
I just like to look at the mirror and like if I have to do a presentation or if I'm nervous about something or like my interview, I'm like, you are a baddie. You got this. You didn't get here without being you. Like, you got this. Come on, Natalie. Like, just talking myself down and reminding myself that I'm worth it. Or I save voice memos or voicemails from people that have said kind things to me. And so sometimes I'll play those. And so then I try to also send those to people so that they can have them and save them.
Oh, that is beautiful. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's about personalizing and being very specific about what is it that you want to leave that person with, because generic maybe it doesn't land as deep or is not as helpful. So thank you very much for that insightful way of answering that question. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that we didn't touch on that you're like, I wish we would have went there?
I think there was something I thought about earlier, but I totally lost it. And I don't remember at what point we were talking. But maybe it was something about boundaries. I don't remember. But just be you. I think authentically showing up and allowing your team or yourself to do that will inspire others. And just embracing people for who they are and not trying to adjust them so much and make them use a calendar.
Nice. Nice way. I know of at least one person that will appreciate that comment.
I love it. Same.
Well, Natalie, thank you so much for joining us again and sharing your wonderful stories. We hope you will join us again soon and continue to inspire us and help us grow and move forward together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Luisa.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to Desktime Stories. I hope today's conversation gave you an idea, one lesson, or one question you can carry into your own work and life. If it helped you, share it with someone who may need it too. You can find Desktime Stories on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Until the next story.